I had a boating accident in 1976. Pretty much took it off right then and there. They gave me a pink satch foot, basically a block of wood with some rubber around it and a nice cushion heel. And that's all there was in the world at that time. But I knew that's not where it had to be. This couldn't be it. This is too bad. This is too crummy.
I lost my arm in Vietnam in 1968, stepped on what we call Bouncing Betty. It was in April. I was fitted with my first artificial arm, and alien device. I didn't want anything to do with it. It looked ugly. It just cold, but you have to make that decision. I'm going to become independent. I need that artificial arms.
To be honest, on limitations, I don't think there are any, because you can do just about anything anybody else can do, period. And especially with the developments that they're coming out with on some of these new ones, I mean, it won't be long before it's like it didn't even happen, really.
In order to advance the field in robotics and in the prosthetics is an interesting place because it's an interdisciplinary field now. And it couldn't have happened 50 years ago when we were defining mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, neuroscience. All those have been an independent field, and they've made lots of progress within that. Now, places like NIH are realizing that the gap is a place where we can combine to create things was not possible just in one of the fields.
If you watch the movies and things that come out of Hollywood, then you get the impression that robots have superhuman strength and superhuman capability. If you look at the real state of the art in robots, it's completely the other way around. We're not talking about trying to make something better than a human limb. We're trying to make something that comes close to approximating a human limb.
The advancement in prosthetics has always coincided with a war, because that's when the research and the dollars come into it.
There have been these little explosions of innovation and development. That goes back to Napoleon's armies, to the Civil War in the US, the First World War in Europe, the Second World War for the US, where afterwards there was just tremendous emphasis placed on improving the quality of life of the soldiers returning.
For the upper extremity, there wasn't much, but still there was a harness, there was a basic arm, and a hook. You could move the hook by hand, and so this was in the 19th century and up into the early part of the 20th century in World War I. What people generally did, they just didn't wear an arm.
World War II, the prosthetic industry borrowed the lamination technology from aerospace industry. And so we're making sockets then out of nylon and kind of a fiberglass materials. So that was a big revolution change.
And most of that is really spurred through individuals. So you have an individual that's injured and wants to get back to a certain level of activity, and he or she is dissatisfied with what is available on the market, and then therefore they push the medical practitioners industry to meet their demands.
So what led me to prosthetic school was I was going to go to India and be a beekeeper for a guru at his ashram, but I couldn't get comfortable. I knew that my stump, my residual limb, was not fitting, and I knew how it wasn't fitting inside the socket, but I couldn't make it fit. The old school taught you to create a great big walnut, a great big dish. And so what they were doing is they were holding your stump inside your socket here and here, and they were squeezing it. It occluded all the blood supply and pushed on my nerves and just created an aching socket if you used it at all. But Jan Stakos's approach was to have the limb fill every single void within the socket and have equal weight bearing. And I did actually a term paper on it. And it was my first experience with bucking normalcy. They had a professor, kind of interrupt me midstream in the presentation. She goes, "And how does it feel? Snug, is it? Yeah, it's probably too tight fitting. It won't work." And now standard practice is, if you don't have a chuck socket, you aren't probably going to a good prosthetist.
It was very uncommon before, say, the 1980s to see amputees running. After the developments that came about, it was very commonplace. Then we found out, well, if we optimize things more, they can run really, really fast. We can adjust the materials and make it much more comfortable. It doesn't have to be a painful situation for them to use a prosthesis. It doesn't have to be debilitating in the same way.
I'm really glad that my parents decided to amputate my left leg, because hearing what doctors have said about what my previous leg was since I was amputated at I think I was 1. It wasn't anything that I could have walked around with, and there's no way without prosthetics that I'd be getting around as well as I do. I actually did spring and oil leak once with my last one, so that's why I had to upgrade just a little bit. It's really nice because in the back it has this hydraulic chamber, which makes it also a shock absorber. So when I step down on my heel and make that first heel strike, they call it, it's not jolting at all. Throughout my life, I've probably been through 10 prosthetic knees and ankles. I grow taller, I need to get a bigger socket. The knees need to get bigger as long as the socket does, and then so does the ankle and foot. So I am worried about costs, about insurance companies and who's gonna pay for it.